You don't need that old safe anymore, Frank. Why don't you give me the combination? I'll take care of it for you. That's what my son-in-law, Kevin, said one Saturday morning, standing in my kitchen like he owned the place. He wasn't. Smiling, not really. More like grinning, the way a man does when he thinks he's about to win something he doesn't deserve. My daughter, Emily, sat across the table sipping her coffee, silent. That silence cut me deeper than Kevin's words, because that safe wasn't just steel and numbers. It held my life. Documents, deeds, savings, the pieces of security I had built after 68 years of sweat in Dayton, Ohio. And here was Kevin, bold as a thief, trying to pry it from me with a smile. Before I continue, if you're new here, please like, comment, and subscribe. And tell us where you're watching from. Now, let me tell you how I ended up in that kitchen with a son-in-law who thought I was too old, too soft, too blind to see his game. I was born and raised in Dayton. Worked 40 years as a machinist, the kind of job where your hands ache every night and the foreman barely learns your name. I built my house brick by brick, literally. When Emily was born, I painted her nursery yellow myself, though I could barely lift a brush after a double shift. When her mother passed, cancer, 10 years ago, I kept that house alive with her memory. Kevin came into the picture later. A tall man with a salesman's smile and a habit of drinking too much at barbecues. I never liked him, but Emily insisted he was ambitious. Ambitious is one word for it. Hungry is another. Hungry for more than he could earn, more than he could respect. At first, I ignored the little comments. Kevin saying, "You know, Frank, houses are a lot to manage when you get older." Or, "You should really think about consolidating accounts. You don't want to leave Emily with a mess someday." I bit my tongue, the way fathers do when they don't want to push their daughters away. But that morning in my kitchen, he showed his hand. "The safe isn't just money, Kevin," I said, my voice steady. "It's my life's work." He chuckled, like I'd told a joke. "That's exactly why I should help you manage it. You don't want to forget a number or misplace a key. That's what family's for, right?" Family. He used that word like a crowbar, trying to pry me open. Emily stared at her coffee cup like it might explain her silence. I realized then that this wasn't just Kevin being greedy. This was something deeper. He'd been planting seeds in Emily's ear, making her think I was slipping, making her think I needed help. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to believe him. The smell of burnt toast lingered in the air. The morning sun cut sharp through the blinds. It should have been an ordinary Saturday. Instead, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, my daughter on one side, my son-in-law on the other, and me wondering which way I'd fall. I leaned back in my chair, studying Kevin's face. The man was too sure of himself, too confident. That told me something. He didn't just want my safe. He thought he already had a way to get it. And in that moment, I decided something quietly, deep inside myself. If Kevin wanted a war for what I'd built, he was going to get one, but he had no idea the kind of man he was up against. Kevin didn't let the safe conversation die. Over the next week, he dropped hints like breadcrumbs, each one sharper than the last. "Frank, you ever think about downsizing? Big house like this? Too much upkeep." Or, "What happens if you forget where you put the key? Wouldn't it be better if someone younger kept track?" Emily rarely corrected him. And when she did, her voice lacked weight. "Kevin, stop," she'd mutter. But her eyes avoided mine. It stung. My daughter, The little girl who once held my calloused hands at the Dayton County Fair was now looking through me like I was fragile glass. One evening, Kevin got bolder. He came by to help fix a leaky faucet. I didn't ask him to, but he showed up anyway. He clanked around under my sink, whistling some country tune off-key. Then, out of nowhere, he called out, "You know, Frank, I've been looking at housing prices around here. You're sitting on a gold mine. Emily and I were thinking, if you sold this place, you could live easy in a condo. No yard work, no maintenance, just peace." I dried my hands on a towel, staring at him. "This isn't just a house, Kevin. It's my home. It's where I raised Emily. Where her mother and I—" He cut me off with a shrug. Sure. Sentimental value. But let's be practical. Houses aren't for old men to rattle around in. They're for families. You've done your part. Don't you think it's time to hand the torch?" That word again. Hand. As if everything I owned was his by default. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "Not happening." But the smirk on his face told me he thought it would happen. Just not on my terms. A few nights later, I found out what he'd been up to. I was coming back from Gus's Diner, where I eat meatloaf every Wednesday, same as I've done for years. When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed the garage door was slightly open. Strange. I always shut it tight. I walked in quietly, and there he was, Kevin, standing in my garage with a flashlight, fiddling with the old lockbox I kept some tools. "In! What the hell do you think you're doing?" I barked. He jumped like a kid caught stealing candy. "Oh, hey, Frank, I thought I'd fix this lock for you. It looked rusty." "Rusty?" I stepped closer. "That's not rust. That's private. You don't belong in here." His smile faltered for just a second, then he puffed himself up. "You're too suspicious, Frank. I'm family. You should trust me." Family. Again. He said it like a threat. Later, when I confronted Emily, she sighed like I was the problem. "Dad, Kevin was just trying to help. You're being paranoid." Paranoid. That word cut deep. I'd survived layoffs, busted knees, and burying my wife, and now my own daughter thought I was paranoid. I couldn't sleep that night. The house was too quiet, too heavy with ghosts. I stared at the ceiling, realizing Kevin wasn't just greedy. He was planting seeds of doubt in Emily's heart, seeds that painted me as senile, incapable, a burden. And maybe, just maybe, Emily was starting to believe him. The next morning, I decided to check something. I opened my desk drawer where I kept spare keys, one of them to the safe. It was gone. My chest tightened. Kevin wasn't waiting anymore. He was moving in on me. And that was when I knew. I had to act before I lost not just my savings, but my daughter's respect forever. I didn't panic when I saw that key missing. That's the thing about getting older. You learn to steady your hands even when your stomach is twisting. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, watching the steam curl upward, and I thought about every move Kevin had made, his smiles, his comments, his creeping around in my garage. It wasn't random. It was a strategy. He wanted me to look incompetent. And once Emily believed I was slipping, she'd side with him on whatever came next, selling the house, cracking open the safe, maybe even locking me away in some senior living place, while they helped themselves to what I'd built. That wasn't happening. So, the next day, I drove downtown to see someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Howard McBride, my old neighbor and attorney. Howard and I grew up 2 blocks apart. He'd gone to law school while I went to the factory, but we always shared beers on Friday nights until life carried us different ways. His office still smelled like leather and paper, like time hadn't touched it. He squinted when he saw me. "Well, I'll be damned. Frank Miller. Haven't seen you since Linda's funeral. What brings you in?" I closed the door behind me. "Trouble, Howard. Family trouble." Over the next hour, I told him everything. Kevin's probing questions, his creeping in my garage, the missing key. Howard listened, didn't interrupt once, just tapped his pen on the desk the way he used to tap his beer bottle before making a point. Finally, he leaned back. "Frank, you're not crazy. You're dealing with a son-in-law who smells money. But here's the thing. You've got more power than you think. That house, that safe, those accounts, they're yours. And as long as you're breathing, no court in Montgomery County can force you to hand them over." I exhaled, the knot in my chest loosening a little. "So, what do I do?" Howard smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile a lawyer gives when he's already sharpening the blade. "You set up protections, a living trust, power of attorney, but not to Emily or Kevin. To someone you trust. And you make sure every penny, every deed, is locked down tight. That way, even if they try to paint you as incompetent, there's no way they get their hands on it." I nodded slowly. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had a weapon. That afternoon, I went to First National Bank of Dayton, the same bank I'd opened my first savings account in back in 1972. The teller, a young guy with slick hair and too much cologne, looked surprised when I asked to move my accounts into a trust. Howard's assistant walked me through the paperwork. It felt like shifting the ground under Kevin's feet. He just didn't know it yet. By evening, I'd taken another step. I went to the safe, opened it, and moved half of what was inside, important deeds, bonds, and some cash, into a deposit box at the bank. I left the rest, along with some papers I knew Kevin would salivate over, because if he thought he was winning, I wanted him to try. I wanted him to open that safe and feel like a king, before finding out he'd been played like a fool. That night, as I sat on the porch with a beer, cicadas buzzing in the distance, Emily called. Her voice was tight. "Dad, Kevin said you've been acting paranoid. He's worried about you." I swallowed hard. "Emily, let me ask you something. Do you think I'm losing it?" Silence. Then, quietly, "I don't know, Dad. You've been so on edge. Maybe Kevin's right. You should let us help." There it was, the knife twisting. My own daughter, halfway convinced I was the problem. I didn't argue. Not yet. Instead, I said, "Don't worry about me, Em. I've got everything under control." And I meant it. Because for the first time, I did. Kevin thought he was circling prey. He didn't know I'd already set the trap. It was a Sunday afternoon when Kevin made his play. Emily had invited me over for dinner. Pot roast, her mother's old recipe. I almost didn't go. My gut told me it wasn't just about food. But I went anyway, partly to see my grandkids, partly because I wanted to look Kevin in the eye. When I walked into their house, Kevin was in rare form. He clapped me on the back like we were old pals, poured me a drink without asking, and kept grinning. That salesman's grin, it wasn't hospitality. It was victory. We sat down at the table, me, Emily, Kevin, and the kids. For a while it was normal, small talk, the smell of roast beef, the clatter of forks. But halfway through the meal, Kevin cleared his throat. "Frank," he said, like he was rehearsing a speech. "Emily and I have been talking. We think it's time you let us help manage your assets. The house, the safe, all of it. You've done so much for us. It's only fair we take some of that burden Off your shoulders. Emily stared at her plate. My grandkids shifted uncomfortably. I sipped my water, slow and calm. What exactly do you mean by manage? Kevin leaned forward, his voice dropping just enough to sound serious. I mean, give me the combination. The safe. We'll take it. From there. There it was. No more hints, no more charm, just a demand. I set my glass down. And what if I say no? He smirked. Then maybe it's time we admit you're not capable of handling it anymore. Emily and I already spoke to an elder care lawyer. If you can't manage your finances, the court will appoint someone who can. It's called guardianship. The room went dead silent. Emily's eyes flicked to mine, full of shame. She hadn't known I'd hear it this way, but she hadn't stopped him either. I let the moment hang, heavy as lead. Then I said, "Funny you mention lawyers, Kevin, because I've been talking to one too." His smirk faltered. Before he could recover, I pulled a folded document from my jacket pocket and slid it across the table. That's a copy of my living trust. Everything I own, the house, the safe, the accounts, is already secured. You have no claim to it. Not now, not ever, Emily gasped. Kevin went pale, then red. He snatched the paper, scanning it like a drowning man searching for air. That's not possible, he muttered. Oh, it's very possible, I said calmly. Howard. McBride filed it himself. And just so you know, I also moved most of the safe's contents into a bank deposit box. So even if you got the combination, and I know you took that spare key, you'd find a whole lot less than you expected. His jaw tightened. You can't just— Yes, I can. I cut him off. And one more thing. I put a little surprise in the safe for you. Go ahead, open it sometime, see what's waiting. He blinked, confused. He didn't know whether to be furious or afraid. The kids were staring. Emily looked like she might cry. And me? For the first time in years, I felt steady, solid. Kevin had tried to corner me, tried to strip me of dignity in front of my own family. But I'd flipped the board on him, and the best part? He didn't yet realize how deep his humiliation was about to go, because what I'd left in that safe wasn't money. It was proof. Proof that would burn every bridge he had left. 2 nights later, I got the call. It was Emily, her voice tight and shaking. Dad, we need to talk. Can you come over? When I pulled into their driveway, the curtains were drawn, tight. The house felt heavy, like it knew what was coming. Emily opened the door, eyes red from crying. Kevin wasn't in sight. She led me straight to the den. There, on the coffee table, sat the contents of my old safe, spread out like evidence. At a trial, Kevin was slouched in a chair, pale and silent. His arrogance was gone, stripped bare. Emily pointed at the papers. What is this, Dad? I sat down, calm as ever. That, Emily, is every debt Kevin's been hiding from you. Credit cards maxed out, payday loans, a failed business investment he never told you about. I left copies in the safe, along with bank statements showing withdrawals he made behind your back. I figured if he was desperate enough to steal, he deserved to be caught red-handed. Emily's hand shook as she lifted one of the statements. Is this true, Kevin? He muttered something about bad luck and things turning around soon, but it was useless. The numbers didn't lie. Her face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. You tried to ruin my father, and you've been lying to me, Kevin finally snapped, standing up, voice rising. He's turning you against me. Don't you see? This was supposed to be ours. He doesn't need it anymore. He's old. leaned forward, locking eyes with him. My voice was low, steady, the way you talk to a man already defeated. Old doesn't mean weak, Kevin. It means I've learned how to fight smarter. And this fight? You've already lost. The silence that followed was like a gavel hitting wood. Emily took the kids and went upstairs. Kevin grabbed his coat and stormed out the door, slamming it so hard the walls shook. But the sound I heard wasn't power. It was desperation. A man's life collapsing behind him. In the weeks that followed, everything unraveled for him. Emily filed for divorce. Word spread fast in our town. Dayton folks loved their gossip. Soon everyone knew Kevin had tried to rob his father-in-law and had debts piled higher than his pride. He lost his job at the dealership, too. Turns out, bosses don't like employing thieves. As for me, I kept my house, my safe, my dignity. But, more than that, I got my daughter back. One evening, Emily came over with the kids. She hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm sorry I doubted you, Dad. You were right all along, and that was worth more than any bond or deed locked in a safe." Kevin thought he could break me, but in the end, he broke himself. Because when you build your life on greed and lies, the collapse always comes. Loud, public, and merciless. And when you build it on hard work and truth, like I did, it stands. Always. Before I go, tell us your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories.